As a monastic, from one viewpoint, we lose some of our individuality. We wear the same clothes, cut our hair the same, have the same precepts, have the same views about the Dharma, follow the same internal guidelines to the monastery. So in that way, there's a tendency to conformity, to losing our individuality. And that aspect may be very difficult for some people. On the other hand, we all have our individual qualities and talents, and those are going to come out. There's no way to prevent that. And that's not a bad thing, because we need everybody's diversity of talents and specialities and qualities for the functioning of the Dharma and the Sangha community. Where we get stuck is when we get attached to those special qualities that we have. And, okay, we'll wear the same clothes and have the same hair, but I want to be seen as shining more than somebody else shines. Or I want to shine in a particular area and be known for having that great quality. So this is a wish to be special that we bring with us from lay life. Or maybe I should say it's an attachment to being special. Because we are special, but it's the attachment to it that brings the difficulties. And so we want to be special in our ordained life. Maybe we want to be special to one other monastic, so we form a very close relationship with that person. Or we want to be special to a group of lay people and known as, either a good teacher or a good counselor or a good meditation leader. Or we want to be known as special because of our skills, certain skills in running the monastery, and how the whole monastery depends on us having those skills or having that job. And the big way of being special is that somehow not all of the internal guidelines of the monastery apply to me. And so giving herself permission to do things that we know are to be abandoned within the monastery. Or an inverse speciality that everybody else gets to do those things, but I don't. So I'm special and being neglected in the monastery. So our challenge is to learn how to lose our individuality, and also to maintain the things that we do well without a sense of attachment, without a sense of specialness, without bolstering the sense of I am great. So it's always helpful in this regard to ask ourselves, who is this I that thinks it is so great? Either wanting attention from one person, wanting attention from a group, thinking that people are treating us unfairly, or that we have special privileges that others don't. So who is this I that feels entitled to all of this? That is some concrete, independent entity. That can be its own shining star, illuminating the universe. But very interesting, when that comes up. Who is that I? And then examine, see if you can find who that I is. And knowing that trying to solve this puzzle of who we are or who we aren't is a significant part of the path to liberation. Let's engage in it for the benefit of all beings, knowing that they all suffer from that same kind of eye grasping just like we do, and how much it causes all of us misery. So are you a shining star? Unique in the monastery to at least one other person, or maybe to all the lay people who think you're the best monastic in the monastery. You give the best BBC talks. You make the best food in the kitchen. You lead the best meditations, better than anybody else. Yeah. Some way, I'm going to distinguish myself because I am distinguishable. There's a real me there that has these fantastic qualities. And the the world's going to see them. Or there's a real me there that everybody else persecutes. Yeah. They get to do things that I don't get to do. I have to do things they don't have to do. The monastery is so full of, bias, partiality. I'm singled out all the time. Yeah. Every time I know those two people are talking, they're talking about me. Yeah. Because again, I'm special. I'm not like everybody else. I am more worthwhile to be gossiped about than anybody else. Yeah. This is us, isn't it? And we all suffer from it. We all suffer from it. The person who left suffers from it a lot. So here we are in our suffering state, aren't we? Yeah. All suffering in the exact same way. And yet wanting to be special in our suffering. Okay, so, it's an interesting thing to sit and check who is this I that's coming up in all these different ways. Yeah. Because that's the real root of so much of our misery, isn't it? Yeah. Shall we go to you know, it's so hard to accept that, we're completely equal to everybody in terms of our importance and in terms of our wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. Somehow that is so difficult. Yeah. And that's why we're here, isn't it? Because it's hard. Yeah. But breaking through this is the way to find some inner peace. Yeah. So the more we grasp onto that self, the more miserable we are. Okay. So I think, the Zenis have koans. So if you want to put our whole elaborate treatises about Madhyamika philosophy into a koan, it's, who do you think you are? So I tell people this is exactly what my mother would ask me when I was naughty. I hear it ringing in my ear. Young lady, who do you think you are? Good question. Yeah.
It's a good book title.
Yes. Yeah, I still have in mind to write that book of sayings from my mother. Yeah, there was a lot of wisdom, Don't knock your head against the wall. Yeah. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Don't cry over spilled milk.
Life isn't fair.
Life isn't fair. Oh. Oh.
You make your bed, you lie in it.
Yeah, so I don't make my bed. Just wait until you have children and then you'll see what I've gone through. Yeah. Could we start a little list in the dining room and everybody write down the things that you've heard your mother or father say to you? Yeah, I think it would be a fantastic little book. It'd be one that would be actually quite fun to write. Yeah, yeah. Because a lot of those things that we hated actually have a lot of deep Dharma meaning. Yeah. So let's start a little list. Writing clear handwriting, okay? That's another thing your mother told you to do. You're not a doctor yet, so write in clear handwriting. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about a few different topics. First one is a monastic lifestyle reflects certain commitments, certain ways of viewing life. And I know commitment is a difficult word for people nowadays. It's the C word. And I don't know whether people fear commitment or cancer more. But people really fear commitment, It's like, I got to keep all my doors open. Yeah. Because if I commit, then I'm trapped. Okay? So we keep all of our doors open, and then we just wander around from one room to the other, feeling quite lost, because we never, settle into anything. Okay. But a monastic lifestyle does reflect some commitment. So the first one is to full awakening, that we're committed to looking for happiness beyond this life. We're committed to looking for meaning beyond what society says is meaningful in our life. And we're committed to something beyond our own self-interest. Okay, by being committed to enlightenment. Another thing is we're making the spiritual path the central part of our life. Okay, so what is the most important thing in our life? Yeah, it's not our reputation, it's not our bank account, it's not if we have a corner office or not, it's not the number of people we've gone to bed with, it's not, all these other things. It's the path to enlightenment, and that path and practicing that path is the central thing in our life. So when we wake up each morning, what are we going to do today? Most important thing is to practice the path. Okay, which can include learning the path and all sorts of other things. Okay. Then another thing that is central in our lives is non-harmfulness and self-restraint. Yeah, so we're really committed to not harming other living beings. And to be a person who's not harmful, then we have to learn to restrain ourselves from all those impulses that come out to harm people in little or big ways, by putting them down, by ridiculing them, by any number of things. Okay? So really committed to non-harmfulness, to self-restraint, and restraining negative actions, and in self-restraint in terms of our relationships with sense objects, that we're really committed to watching, where do our eyes go? What are our ears listening to? What are we focusing on smelling? What are we focusing on feeling? What are we focusing on tasting? And where is our mind going? What stories is our mind making up? Okay, so being aware of that and then restraining. Yeah, my mind's going down that slippery slope. My mind's stuck in a story. Yeah, I've got to bring it back to the reality of the situation, conventional reality. or bring it back to the ultimate reality. One of it, but get it out of that story. Okay, we're also committed to being of benefit to others and to making a positive contribution to society. So like I was talking yesterday, we're not monastics for our own self-interest or even our own liberation. Yeah, we really want to benefit other living beings now and in future lives. Okay. We're also, as part of being committed to benefiting others, we're committed to non-consumerism and non-materialism. Okay? Because by not being big consumers, by not being materialists, we're saving the environment. We're not using our unfair share of the Earth's resources. And we're showing an example that there's an alternative to consumerism. Yeah. And so this is something that sometimes is a bit more difficult because the mind that says, I need that, or I have this, but that is a little bit better, so I need to get that. I have one jacket, but then there's some days when I have a jacket for cool weather and I have a jacket for cold weather, but there's a few days in between where I need a special jacket for those days. Okay? And so we collect jackets. Yeah. Or yellow jackets. You have a yellow jacket.
And you gave it to me.
I didn't give it to you.
Yes, you did. When I was a layperson, this little yellow jacket arrived, and you came up to my chair when I was downstairs. You said, "Here, this will fit you."
That bright yellow one that you have? That you wear all the time? Except on today when it's 106.
Well, I guess that was thrown out the door. The teacher gave it to me.
That's why you can't get rid of it, huh? It's always easy to find her, because this jacket's so bright
That's
red.
exactly what I don't want.
But it's warm and cozy. Okay, so we're trying not to be super materialists or super consumerists. Okay. One thing, if you live in this Abbey, you need to get used to being teased. If you are super sensitive to being teased, you're going to run down the hill. So, yeah, but don't tease me. Because I'm special. I can tease, but I can't be teased. Yeah, the rules are different for me. Oh, yes. Okay, so we're also committed to going beyond individualism and self-gratification. Yeah, so this tendency of, I want to be an individual and I need my self-gratification. And I must say, that this is one of the problems of Western Buddhist monastics is that we grew up in a culture that values individualism. And this makes it sometimes very difficult for monastics to want to live together in a community. Yeah, because, I have my own daily schedule and I like to wake up at this time, but the daily schedule of the monastery has us waking up at another time. Yeah, I like to manage my day like this, but the monastery schedule is different. Yeah, I like to cook these foods. I like to wear these kind of clothes. And above all, I do not like being told what to do. I am not a child. I am an adult. Yeah. Do not tell me what to do. Absolutely not. Okay? And then, when you have that very strong in your mind, then the idea of living in a monastery seems like going to prison because you're giving up your choices. You have to meditate at certain times. You can't just meditate when you feel like it. Yeah, and you have to eat at certain times. You can't just eat, like when you feel like it. And you have to wear your robes a certain way. You even have to hold your hands a certain way. You have to keep them like this. You can't have them like this. Yeah. You have to have them like this. But all the Tibetans have them like this, or that. Why do I have to hold them like this? Because if you're going to go to Taiwan to take full ordination, you better start practicing now, because otherwise they will walk by, and when you're in line, they will move your hands. That's what they did to me. Yeah. So you can't cross your legs. You can cross your ankles, but you can't cross your legs. Again, if you're planning to go to Taiwan for full ordination, forget about crossing your legs. So you start practicing now. Yeah. So there's lots of things. But what's wrong with crossing my legs? We say. Yeah, there's no precept against crossing your legs. I'm more comfortable when I cross my legs. It hurts my aching back when I cross my leg. So it's like this. Do you see what I'm getting at? The smallest things, that we are, we just rile against. Don't tell me that. Yeah. Don't tell me, the Tibetans grow their hair 2 fingers width. That's, yeah. Why can't I grow my hair 2 fingers width here? Because, because you look like a layperson. But I saw pictures of you when you lived at Dorji Pomo Monastery and your hair was that long. Ask Sange Kadra about that when she comes. Yeah. No, there's a way that you get more as you get into monastic life. You pay more attention to some of these small things and the effects it has on your mind, the effects it has on other people too. Yeah. Okay, so this individualism among Western monastics, I think is a big hindrance for people in general, because people say, I don't have any support. The lay people don't support me. They give donations to the monasteries in Asia, but they don't support Western monastics like me. Yeah. Well, may I venture to say that when we live on our own, and we have our own flat and our own car and our own television, and we go and come as we please, then to lay people, it looks like we're kind of living like them. And especially if you have a job and you go to work to earn a living, then, the lay people say, why should I support you? Mm-hmm. And so this is, really part of the power of living in a monastery is, there's certain things that that when you are an individual, okay, you can set your own daily schedule, and there's a lot of things you can do as an individual. But one individual, cannot set the example to society that a group of monastics living in a monastery can. Okay? One individual does not have usually enough karma for, if we invited Kyabche Lingrim, if we all had separate houses and you invited Kyabche Ling Rinpoche to come to your house, do you think he would come to your house and give stay for a couple of days and give you a teaching? Forget it. Yeah? When you live in a monastery, the combined virtue, the combined merit of everybody is what enables us to have great teachers come to us. Yeah? So there's a lot that happens, the combined energy of a group of people that doesn't happen as an individual. So it's your choice, there's a number of monastics who live as individuals. Yeah. And my way of thinking is, if you choose to do that, then please don't complain that the lay people don't support you. Yeah, because that's your choice. Yeah. Now, granted, there aren't a whole lot of monasteries in the West for people to go live in. But even there are some, and just even to live in a group, even if you don't have a monastery, is better than living on your own. So it's people's decision. When we're very individualistic and we want to do what we want to do when we want to do it, and we don't like being told what to do, and we don't like rules, then there's then to have that, then there's other things that you give up. Yeah. When you live in a monastery, there's certain things you give up, but there's certain benefits that come from it too. Okay? So my point is, whatever you choose to do, don't complain about it. Yeah? Because it's your choice. And if that's what you want to do, be happy doing that, instead of choosing to do that and then complaining that you have to do that. Yeah. It's kind of like some people really struggle. Should I be a lay person? Should I be a monastic? Yeah. And they go back and forth, and they sometimes spend years on this, back and forth, back and forth. And the way I feel is, look in your heart, see what you want to do. If, there's things in monastic life that just don't suit you, you don't want to live in a monastery, you don't want to be celibate, you want to have a family. Yeah. Then be a lay person and be a good Dharma practitioner lay person. Yeah. If you want to be a monastic, but don't complain that you have to give up certain things about lay life. Yeah. So my point is that whatever you choose to do, be happy doing it. Because if you're not happy doing what you choose to do, then no matter what you choose, you're somehow making it difficult for yourself and not taking full advantage of the merit you can create doing that. Yeah? Okay, so to give you some examples, I'm going off on a tangent. I lived at one Dharma center, and the director of the Dharma center, the person who was the director for a while, he was married, he had 2 kids, and he kept saying, "Oh, I wish I were a monk, I wish I were a monk." And he would say this to his wife, if it wasn't for you, I would go be a monk. And if it wasn't for the kids, I would go be a monk. But, and he said this a lot, Yeah, and he was really torn what to do. And then, of course, that had an effect on his family. And his wife had an affair because she's married to this guy who kept saying, I wish I were a monk. So she went off and had an affair. And then he, kind of blew up. And it's like, oh, now my marriage is falling apart. My family's falling apart. Yeah. So it's that kind of thing. If you choose to be a layperson, be a happy layperson. Practice the Dharma as a layperson. You can do that. Be happy doing that. Yeah. Don't have in the back of your mind, oh, I coulda, woulda, shoulda, been a monastic. Just do that. And if you're a monastic, don't lament, oh, I'm a monastic and there's these difficulties and on and on and on and on. The lay people have it so much better. If you want to be a layperson, be a layperson. If you chose to be a monastic and there's something in you that wants to be a monastic, be a happy monastic. Forget about all that other stuff. Yeah, just forget it and be a happy monastic. Yeah, because otherwise your whole life, is spent in self-torture. Yeah. So this is part of the mind that wants to keep all the doors open. Yeah. So in some people it manifests as, I want to keep all the doors open. Yeah. Because if I choose one thing or another, I'm going to be unhappy. But then you don't. Your non-choice is a choice. And then you lament the whole time through it. Yeah, so that doesn't make much sense. Yeah, better choose. Be content with who you are. If you really don't want to be a monastic, that's fine. Nobody's pressuring you to. Yeah, be a happy lay practitioner. And if you choose to be a monastic, be a happy monastic. Yeah. I was invited to teach at one Dharma center. And it had a lay teacher, but it also had a monk there. He was not especially a lama, but a monk who, gave some talks and things and different things. And it was so amazing because the lay teacher, who had a family, would wear clothes that looked like robes. And the monk, who had precepts, would wear lay clothes going out into town. And it's like, okay, the person who's a lay person wants to look like a monk without being. The monk wants to be a lay person and dress like a lay person and not, it's like, huh? And just to see, how confusing that was for the people at the center. This one's a monk. How come he's wearing blue jeans? That one has a family. How come he's wearing robes? So it was difficult. And it was awkward for me to teach there. It was an awkward place for me to be. Anyway. Okay, another thing we're committed to is that it's not just about me. Yeah, it's not just about me. It's serving the Dharma, it's serving society. Yeah, so serving the three jewels, serving mother sentient beings. Because those are the two chief, fields of merit. The three jewels, field of merit, because of their exceptional qualities. Mother sentient beings, field of merit, because of their dukkha. Okay, so we serve all of them. Our life is no longer about me. Okay, and that brings a certain peace in your mind when your life isn't just about you. Yeah, because then you don't have to struggle to get everything you want and everything you need. Yeah. And you don't have to worry about what other people think about you. Yeah. Because your life is committed to the three jewels and to sentient beings. Yeah. So it just makes a lot of things easier in our life. Yeah. And when I say committed to sentient beings, I don't mean committed to our family or committed to our best friend. I'm talking about committed to all mother sentient beings. Okay, now another topic, the benefits of monasteries. Yeah, or the role that monasteries play. So one role that I think a monastery plays is that we are the conscience of society. Yeah. We live a simpler lifestyle. Yeah. We hopefully don't go around driving as much and, abusing the environment. So we are implicitly, by our lifestyle, questioning society, saying, is it really necessary to have all this stuff? Yeah. Is it really necessary to have a materialistic, lifestyle? Is the booming economy really the purpose of our life? Is that a measurement of success? Because the economy is booming nowadays. Aren't you happy that the economy is booming and the stock market is up? And,
It's never been better.
yeah, it's never been better. Because I'm the president. I made it all happen by myself alone. You people are saying I'm going to go to the hell realm and save sentient beings by myself alone. Well, I made the economy better by myself alone. Okay. So, but we implicitly ask this question, when people come here. Yeah. And when people know about a monastery. Yeah. It's asking people a question, what is really important in your life? Yeah. I mean, how can you be happy wearing the same clothes every day? Huh? My little niece, from the time she was 6 years old, that's what she marveled at the most about me and commented about, is my aunt wears the same clothes every day. That was miraculous to her. Yeah? That's sad to me. Okay? Okay. So another purpose of a monastery is when you live in the monastery, you lose some of your individual choice, and that benefits you because then you're doing what everybody else is there for the purpose of doing, which is going towards Buddhahood. Yeah. So they say that if you're one tree in a forest, you have no choice but to grow straight up because all the trees around you are growing straight up. Okay? But if you are a lone tree out in the field by yourself, the wind blows you this way, the wind blows you that way, you get twisted, you don't grow straight. Okay? So one benefit of the monastery is it helps us do what we want to do when we don't have the personal discipline to do it on our own. Okay? And so we all grow straight together. Mm-hmm. And we polish those rough edges off of each other. Yeah? Because there's no escaping. When you live in a monastery, you cannot escape other people, meaning you cannot escape yourself. Yeah, because when we want to escape other people, it's, because our buttons are pushed. Yeah. So we don't want to have to deal with certain aspects of ourselves. Another function of a monastery is that people in society are inspired just by knowing that the place exists. People write to us and, they say, it's just inspiring to know that you people are there practicing. Yeah. I'm not there, I can't be there, but knowing that you're there doing that gives me a lot of inner peace and inner solace. I almost said solstice. Yeah, but it does. It gives us inner solace. Okay, we don't have a lot of entertainment here at the monastery. We're not glued to our phones all day. Again, it's setting an example to the rest of society. Do you need to watch Netflix every evening? Do you need to check your phone every 5 minutes? We don't have our own individual phones here. We don't have our own Facebook pages, except there's a public one in my name, but I don't even know how to use it. Somebody else uses it and puts everything on it. I was talking to my brother last week, and he was telling me the virtues of, because we both have hearing aids, of being able to hook your cell phone to your hearing aid. So when people talk, you get it right in here, and it's real easy to hear. And I said to my brother, I don't have a phone. You don't have a phone? Again, an inconceivable thing in our society. And he said, why don't you have a phone? Because I don't want to be available to everybody 24/7. I value my privacy. Yeah. And I don't want to be sending ridiculous tweets all the time. Like when you go to Singapore. Yeah, see, I'm teasing again. When you go to Singapore to give a talk, then there's one tweet, we're leaving. Text. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I goofed up. Text. We're leaving. Okay, then 5 minutes later, we're on our way. Then after another 5 minutes, we're getting closer. Then after another 5 minutes, we're almost there, but we're in a traffic jam. Then after another little bit, okay, we'll be driving, coming up in 2 minutes. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's true, isn't it?
It's for the organizers' mental health.
Oh, yes. You see how compassionate she is. Yeah. So, yeah, but it really makes people think, how can you live without one of those things? Yeah. How, and people come here, have you seen this movie? No. And you're not saying, oh, but I want to, and where's it showing and I'm going. You just say no. And I'm not, I'm not really interested in what the latest movie is. Yeah. Why? Because it's just another film with sex and violence. Documentaries, yes, they're very helpful. But another movie with sex and violence? Boring. Okay. But, people, they think you're kind of nuts. But again, it's a subtle way of asking people, yeah, why are you, exposing your mind to this kind of stuff? Mhm. It's an example of people living green or as green as we can and taking care of the environment, and that's possible to do. So I already told you the story of people coming here and saying, oh, I thought I recycled a lot, but you people really do. Yeah. It's an example of gender equity, except the men carry the heavy things. Okay? So gender equal, but the men carry the big stuff. Well, that's okay. You can use your muscles. Um, yeah. And I think that's a good example, again, for society to see. Mm-hmm. We're available for lay people, when they need help, they can call, they can receive help. We don't necessarily drop everything to take care of somebody because, you have to assess what are different things to do. But definitely when people face crises, we're there to help and support them. And also it's very different than the household of a lay teacher. Yeah. So you may have quite a good lay teacher, but when you go to the household, you're in their personal space, and their spouse and their family may have some ideas and thoughts about that. Yeah. So yeah. If you want Dharma teachings or if you're in crisis, you can't just say to your lay teacher, okay, I need help right now, this instant. If there's a monastery, chances are somebody can come and help you. Yeah. If somebody's dying or, they need somebody to go to the hospital. So there's a number of people who can reach out and go help. Okay, so many benefits, I think. And then also the monastery becomes a place where you can create a very nice Buddhist library where you have Buddhist artifacts. Yeah. We receive, people give us a lot of statues and things, and we try and give a lot of those away too, because many people can't afford statues or thangkas or whatever. So we try and help them out when we can. Okay, next topic. Changes that we experience when we become a monastic that differentiates our life from the life of a lay person. Okay. So there's certain lists of things that change. Yeah, and then there's other things that aren't really in the list. So one thing is the change in appearance. Okay, so we wear robes, we don't wear jewelry and ornaments. Yeah, we don't wear things that are going to be stick out and differentiate ourselves. There's one interesting story behind the precepts of one nun who was wearing ornaments, and she was visiting her friend who was a householder, and she laid down on the bed to rest, and her friend's husband came home and thought that the nun was his wife and started embracing her. Yeah, so don't wear jewelry. and don't wear ordinary clothes, because you get mistaken as a lay person and people will come onto you. And that's one thing that's very nice about being a monastic is you cut out all that junk, because we all know how we change our behavior when we're around somebody we're attracted to. All this subtle kind of flirting that we do, where we walk, how we walk, who we talk to, how we use our eyes, what kind of voice we speak in, how we stand. You know, there's all these things that come out when you want to flirt with people. Okay? As a monastic, you're abandoning flirting. Yeah? So we don't stand with our hands on our legs. Our hands on our hips. No, I was thinking, because the next thing I was going to say is we don't sit with our legs crossed, because that's probably one of the reasons for, sitting with our legs crossed. Yeah, so I just said it wrong. So we don't stand with our hands on our hips, okay? We don't stand leaning on one leg with our other leg a little bit stretched out. Yeah, we don't cross our legs. We're just clear. Yeah. We don't wear clothes that are tight. We don't wear clothes that are cut low. We don't really look like we came out of Vogue magazine, or for the men that you came out of what magazine first? GQ. What? GQ. GQ. What does that stand for? Okay, so you don't look like those guys. Okay, so so then people have to relate to you in a totally different way. You don't relate to them with those games. They can't relate to you with those games. Yeah. And this is the same whether you're straight or whether you're gay. You have to clean up your act about how you relate to people that you might otherwise be sexually attracted to. Okay? And what that does is it really clears the energy so that you can have very frank, straightforward relationships with people. Yeah. Because when there's that sexual attraction, we all know how it is. Yeah. That person walks in the room and let's see, where does he do his walking meditation? I'm going to do my walking meditation nearby, or I'm going to make sure I ask a really clever question, so that I'll be noticed in our life. The trips we play. So one of the big changes, it starts with appearance, but goes to many aspects of our life, is we stop all of that. Yeah. And then you have such nice, clean, clear relationships with other people. It's really delightful, because they stop coming on to you. And you stop, your little things to manipulate them coming on to them. Or is that going on to them? Are you coming or going? He comes on to me, I go on to him? No, that doesn't sound right. I come on to him, he goes on to me. No, that doesn't sound very good either. Yeah, okay, so you got to figure out if you're coming or going here. Okay. Then the second thing that changes is our name. Yeah, so we use our Dharma name. And it takes a while. It took me years to get people to use my Dharma name. Years, because they still kept on. And still, some of the lamas who know me from way back, they use my lay name because that's they knew me. But when you have a different name, then you think of yourself differently. And your ordination name has some meaning, and it gives you some inspiration of what you can become and what you can live up to. So that's quite nice to have. There's a change in livelihood or occupation. Okay? We don't hold down a job for money. Now, this is one of the things that Western Sangha faces a big problem with, is that how do you have your livelihood? You don't need much, as with a simple lifestyle, but you need some things. And it's interesting, in the Theravada tradition, you're completely welcomed in. Resources are shared with you. You don't want. In the Chinese tradition, you're welcomed in as an Inji. Resources are shared with you. As a Tibetan, in the Tibetan tradition, you aren't part of their institutional structure. They see themselves as a refugee population, and you're an Inji, and the way you fit in is that you become a donor, even if you're a monastic. Yeah, you're seen as a potential donor or as somebody who can write letters to their donors. Okay, and that's difficult, The lamas collect donations. Their priority is the monasteries in India and now in Tibet. Their priority is not their Western students. It's somehow assumed that if you're a Westerner, you have money or you have access to money. That is not true, but that is the common perception. Okay. Dharma centers so often you ordain, then you live in a Dharma center. Yeah. Some Dharma centers, give you room and board. Yeah. But you have to work. Yeah. They may also give you a stipend depending on the center. But basically, your role is cheap labor. Sorry to say it, but, that's basically it. They want you to lead meditations and teach and do certain things. But, you're often not given enough, forget about saving money, but even for your personal things or for travel or for having enough money to make offerings to your teachers yourself. Yeah. Yeah, so this is a difficult thing. If you ordain in the Tibetan tradition, you need to think about this before you ordain. Where are you going to live and how are you going to support yourself? There's some people who work at jobs, and now often the geshe at the center, the lama at the center, tells people who ordain, go and work at a job. You live in your own apartment. Maybe you live at the center, maybe you don't, but many live at their own apartment. Come to the center, put on your robes, but the center can't support you, so you have to work. And so you have to grow out your hair, you have to have a wardrobe of lay clothes, then you need a car, you need an apartment. You're basically living like a lay person. Okay? And then you go to work to earn the money to pay your car payments and your insurance payments, because the center doesn't cover health insurance, and your rent and your food and everything else. And it's a difficult situation. Yeah, even at monasteries. I know at Gumpo Abbey. I don't know now. Well, Gumpo Abbey, actually, now they're moving all the monastics out of there. But at Nalanda Monastery, the monastics still have to pay to live there, a small amount every day. But they still have to pay to live there. Now, when I lived at Dorje Pomo Monastery, this was the early 80s, and Nalanda was just beginning. Everybody was poor. And we all had to come up with some money somehow, one way or another, to stay there. But I look, and 40 years on, monastics are still having to pay to live in a monastery. this, you really, I have a big soapbox about this one. It's like, what? You know, how are you going to cultivate a sangha that can really serve society? You know, if they have to pay to live in the monastery, and then in the summer they have to go out and work. I heard at Nalanda, there's a big turnover. Some people were receiving sponsorship from the IMI. Then the IMI cut off their sponsorship. These people disrobed. I don't think this is right. But this is the way it often is in many centers. Yeah. And what do I say? Okay. I think I think I've said it. I don't need to repeat myself. Okay. But if you're ordaining in the Tibetan tradition, this is something you need to think about. What this thing often does, also does of the Western monastics having to support themselves, is then you have layers of monastics, those with money, those without money. Those with money get perks. Those without money don't. We did a skit in 1996 at Life as a Western Buddhist Nun, because Venerable Wu Yin asked us to do skits. And we did a skit about this, the monastics who have money, so-and-so's teaching, I'm fly off to there to hear that teaching. I fly there to go to that teaching. Because some Dharma centers will let you attend the teaching free, but some of them charge you. Or maybe they don't charge you for the teaching, they charge you for room and board. You got to come up with money somehow. So the rich people, either because their families support them, or maybe they have an inheritance, or they ordained when they're older, so they have some savings, then they can go and attend all these teachings because they can pay for the room and board, they have money to make offerings, they can pay for transportation, so they go off. Then the people who don't have money stay at the monastery, or they stay at the Dharma center. They aren't able to afford to go off and go somewhere else and get the teachings. Yeah. And that's not right, is it? I mean, first of all, I think the Dharma should be available to everybody, lay people also, without charging, and especially to monastics, and people should try. They had, sometimes what they do is they charge the monastics, but then they try and get lay people to support and pay the fee, so the monastic doesn't have to pay the fee. Personally speaking, I feel very uncomfortable with that. There was one center where I lived, the monks don't pay, the nuns pay for everything, okay? And so I was expected to pay for rent. They said, well, the lay people often will sponsor the nuns, but you don't know if they're going to sponsor you until the last day. So do you sign up to go there or not? Because you don't have so much money yourself. And maybe the lay people don't sponsor you that year because there's problems or they forget or who knows what. So if you're cautious, you just don't sign up to go to start with. Yeah. And it shouldn't be like that. I mean, it's fantastic if they raise money and have scholarships, but why are they charging the monastics in the first place? The reason is because the centers want the money, and they say they need the money. And now you have me really on my soapbox. I think there's a poverty mentality. Yeah, there's a poverty mentality that if we don't charge, people are too stingy and they're not going to give anything to us. And what I find is often so interesting is the centers with the most poverty mentality who charge for the teachings give the least amount of dana to the teacher. Yeah, and which is indicating a lack of faith in karma. Because what's the cause of karma? Cause of generosity? But what's the cause of wealth? Sorry, I'll get my words right. What's the cause of wealth? What are we learning? It's generosity. Yeah? Why don't groups, centers, and monasteries and so on, I mean, most monasteries practice generosity, but why don't Dharma centers practice generosity? Yeah? It's almost as if saying, yeah, we believe generosity is the cause of wealth, but we don't really believe it. Yeah? So, I'm sorry, you were a center director. I don't know how you're taking what I'm saying, if you agree or don't agree.
It's important that you say it, and I think it's important for centers to discuss some of that together as well, and kind of have common aspirations of how they want to handle some of these issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I really think if you get rid of the poverty mentality, yeah, that a lot can change, And I know that from personal experience, When I first ordained, I mean, even before I was ordained, I was Miss Cheapo. Yeah, if there was any way I could get out of paying for something, I did it. When it came to giving donations, I gave the least amount possible because I had this incredible poverty mentality. And actually, when I lived in India, I was quite poor. I had $50 to my name, no return ticket, no benefactor, nothing. So, it wasn't just my mind, it was also the reality of the situation. And then when I was living in France at Dorji Pomo Monastery, it's cold in the winter. The nuns were living in the horse stables. Okay. And we got the horse stables to live in. It was so cold, and we had to pay for the heat in our own rooms. And I didn't have enough money to pay for heat in my room. So I often slept in the gompa. I did a lot of prostrations to get warm. Yeah. And one day I just kind of sat down and I said, and I had no money for anything. I was one of the poor ones. I couldn't go here and there for teachings. And I said, why, what's going on here? And then I said, this is the karmic result of my being cheap. Yeah? You're stingy, you lack resources. That's what the Buddha said. This is the result of my own stinginess. Because when I lived in India, I even hesitated to give 25 paisa to a beggar to get a cup of tea. Because and when I lived in India, 25 paisa, you could buy a cup of tea. Now you have to pay, I don't know what. How much?
For a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 rupees or something.
10 rupees, yeah. Okay, so this is a price increase of, it's 40 times as much, okay, as what it used to be. So, I just had to say this is a result of my own cheapness. That's it. And, look, children, you got to change because this situation otherwise isn't going to change. So I sat there and I had to push myself. Yeah. And now I have this golden palace on the hill that I didn't even want, that they made me have. Oh. That has air conditioning. Are you jealous? Are you all going to come and sit there now? Okay, all afternoon, everybody's invited. You can come. Yeah.
If I may belabor the point about the Dharma centers, because I it was my experience, and it was a bit sad. For several years, I considered this particular place in California my home away from home, and it was really a source of inspiration and wisdom, and I loved to go there. I felt like I had this very special connection to this place. But it seemed to me like almost overnight, the prices for going to the retreat escalated to thousands of dollars. And all of a sudden, I, as a lay person, could not afford to go anymore. It's not that I wasn't making any money, actually. My income kept on increasing, but the prices, so were the prices at the retreat center, and now I could no longer afford to go. And it just spurred on me this questioning, is the Dharma for rich people only? Where do poor people or even middle income people then fit now in this, in relationship to the Dharma? Is the Dharma a commodity now that you kind of have to afford? Now, granted, this place offered scholarships, but quite frankly, I felt like, gee, I do earn a little bit of money. There may be another student who has even less than I. Why should I then burden the center asking for a scholarship when I feel like there may be even other people less fortunate than I am who really need it? So I didn't allow myself to take advantage of that. But then that meant I no longer could call that place my home away from home because I just couldn't go. So it just became very disconcerting at that time.
Yeah.
What was confusing to me was also, I mean, anytime I attended a Dharma talk by a monastic, it was never, it was up to us what we wanted to offer. But then I saw, and I've since seen many former monastics that have disrobed, monks or whatever, and now they're lay teachers who are charging, and I thought, okay, did they disrobe to earn a profit? I mean, that was very confusing to me when I first started practicing. It's still very puzzling. It's like,
Yeah.
I still don't know what to make of that.
Yeah. It's very confusing. Yeah. Why don't you go and then we'll pass the mic this way. So, she has some. Okay, go ahead.
Just wanted to clarify in terms of the Abbey asking dana from monastics. What was the thinking behind?
We don't ask dana from monastics.
We do.
We when we have guest teachers, we give a dana talk, and monastics are very free to make offerings to guest teachers.
For the Vinaya course, we did put in there that we asked for dana.
Oh, okay. So there's two situations. And for registering for courses, we ask for dana. And for the winter retreat, we ask for dana, but not from monastics. Yeah. So if you want a refund, you can get it. But no, we have a policy. What are you shaking your head? What? Oh, we didn't ask for the Vinaya course there. Yeah, we didn't ask people. They didn't have to give money. The Vinaya course was sponsored by us. And at the end, we said, we all want to show our gratitude to the teachers. So if you want to make an offering to Venerable Wu Yin or the translators, here's how we're going to do it. But there was no charge to anybody to come to the Vinaya course. Oh, there was a request for people to either send $100 or send their air ticket. Okay. The reason we do that is because, and this is the reason for retreats, why we ask people to give $100 to reserve their place, is because we started out without doing that, and then people would register, and then the day before they would cancel. And it would become full. We couldn't call other people the day before and tell them there was a place. So that's why we asked people, because monastics especially, change their plans a lot. And for the Vinaya course, we had limited space. We were totally full. So they had to either send us a copy of their air ticket, which many people did, or to give $100 dana, which we would have happily given back if they wanted it, because it was dana.
Yeah, I was also thinking, by the way, in our Center Maitreya Institute, since this year, it's been cancelled. I really made it.
What's been cancelled?
The charging for nuns and monks. They still had to pay 40%. And I said, generosity, and everybody said, yeah, of course, yes. And there is enough wells now as well in the center.
Yeah.
So now the monks and nuns are free. Yeah, I was so happy with that.
That's
and they
very
were so
nice, yeah.
They were really, especially it was the person who was coming, newest to the Dharma from business actually, who was the chairman of and he was the first one, what? Are nuns and monks paying? That's ridiculous. We should immediately stop that. So,
Yeah.
So there's something changing there.
Yeah.
But I know also in Nalanda, the nuns are still being charged to study.
To study?
€125 a month, and
the
monks
nuns
pay
are
for
being
the study,
charged to attend the teachings
and
at
the monks
Nalanda?
are €200 for room and board and the studies, but the nuns have to pay for their own accommodation, and they charge 125.
You said the monks also pay for the study program?
Well, the monks, they pay €200 for room and board, and then they can study.
And then they can study. And the nuns pay 125, but they have to cover their own room and board and everything else.
Yeah. And there are bicycles. I mean, there are bicycles for free use for monks and volunteers, but the nuns pay, as the only ones of the community, €10 a month to use the bike. So, I mean, okay, apart from, if the more, straight, the first feeling is getting a bit, outraged about it, but then thinking about karma, and of course Nalanda is not the only one. We, as nuns, we face continuously we have a collective karma of being, and not fairly treated, getting less resources. So how did we create that karma? Do you have an idea about it?
Well, acting the way the other people are acting right now.
So we've been only monks in our past life.
I mean, maybe our karma, we didn't treat other people fairly. Yeah?
I was searching for is there a collective thing, a collective thing that nuns have generated to have this position?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you were a nun in your past life. You may have been, some group somewhere in some country that had nothing to do with Dharma, but collectively that group discriminated against other people or didn't treat another group of people fairly. So you create that collective karma, and then it ripens now. Yeah. But then other people now are creating that karma to experience this kind of result. Yeah. So there's another thing I want to clarify. There are two places where we, like I said, we asked for the $100 for all the other retreats to reserve it so the places are filled and they aren't left empty at the last minute. For the 3-month retreat, we asked for dana, and for this program we asked for dana. And we ask it, we say it's specifically dana, and we encourage people, if they don't have money, to ask their friends to support them to go to a program. And even the people who give the dana, it's so amazing. You say it's dana, people still think that it's paying. But we explain, it's on the website, that if you give dana, it's to enable everybody who comes to that program to attend. So don't think you are paying for yourself, because if you're paying for yourself, you accumulate no virtue. If you think, I'm giving dana for the retreat, maybe everybody gives the same amount of dana, maybe they don't, but I'm sponsoring it so that everybody can be here and attend the retreat together. That's why we call it dana. We don't call it a fee. Okay? The reason we did that was because at the very beginning, we had payments to make on the land. We were paying off the mortgage, and we were having these programs from the very beginning. And we were paying for food as well as all the utilities, and so we had to ensure that there was a certain amount of income. So it's still now that case. It's about $30 a day. Most retreat centers charge at least double, if not triple, for that, just for room and board. But we've also had it where people come to these programs, they want to come, they don't have the money for the dana, and we say come, and it's fine. Yeah, we had one man here for winter retreat. He had zero money, and he stayed and did a very wonderful retreat. So we do that, yes.
It's important for people to hear too, Venerable Children, that when a person expresses interest in coming for a retreat or a program, they learn about the 100 initial dana, and then I always phrase following that, or whatever you can manage right now. And so for people who are struggling financially, they might initially send $20, and then with 99% of these people want so much to be supporting the Abbey that the rest comes in over time, because they want to make a gift in return for what they've received in the teachings. And then there's a very touching story. I won't say the person's name. She's been planning on coming for the winter retreat, the 1-month winter retreat, for about 2 years. She's been sending installments for the last 18 months, bit by bit by bit. She's been telling her friends where she lives, what she's up to, and she has had this focused goal. And every time she sends something, you can just tell it's a celebration in the letter. That's inspiring.
Yeah.
So
We love you, Fabian. It's okay.
So I feel this is interesting because, it's a big topic and there's so much, how to say, it's very challenging for Dharma centers to handle. So I want to share a little bit of our experience at Vajrapani because I think it helps people understand how multi-layered these issues can be. So first of all, there are centers like Vajrapani, who are retreat centers, who have really high expenses. So, our expenses annually is about $600,000 a year, roughly. And we have lay staff who are on payroll, and we pay overtime, and we abide by the California labor laws and so forth. And we're really sensitive to wanting to give right livelihood to the people who offer service at the Dharma Center. So that's a theme, and healthcare and, all of that. So proper housing. And as an example, Vajrapani Institute is in one of the most expensive areas to live in the country. So that's one dimension, to think about. So we've had these issues of not wanting to outprice people for, from probably the very beginning. And that's something that for me as director for the last 10 years I've wrestled with. And what Venerable Nima described of this dynamic of people having, not wanting to ask for scholarship. We noticed that, and all FPMT centers have a policy of not turning anyone down for lack of funds. It's a policy worldwide, which means that you can attend any program and say, I want to attend, this is my situation, I have no funds. The center, the FPMT center, should just welcome you. Of course, many people are uncomfortable with doing that. So about 5 years ago, we started this model that we call paid forward model. And now about 5 or 6 of our retreats a year are offered on that model. Not all the retreats. That's an aspiration that we have, but we're not there yet. So the pay it forward model is slightly different from Dana. It's a free retreat. We raise funds at the end of the retreat that gets put forward in a future retreat. So as a participant, you get the experience of being the recipient of someone else's generosity.
Yes.
That you've never met, you don't know who they are, you'll never be able to repay them specifically, but you likewise can offer, according to your means, something so that someone else can offer. And it may seem like maybe some manipulative marketing speak, but it's really not. So when we share it and we do the fundraising appeal, we really, really emphasize that there's no strings attached. And for this model to truly work, it has to have no string and be really, really freely offered. And we have the same thing as you. We charge a deposit because otherwise people don't show up, and that deposit is refundable. And some people ask for the deposit back, and that's totally fine. And so now at the moment, about over a third of our retreats are offered on that model. And it is really challenging. And when you go to Dharma centers, don't think that they don't think about these things. They really, really kind of wrestle between taking care of the people who offer service and making the programs available and how to meet all these needs. And it's really, really complex.
Yeah. Well, you're unique in really paying the staff. In the centers where I lived in, or a lot of them that I see, the staff is not paid, or it receives very little.
And it's interesting because I had a lot of discussion with a team who were setting up a retreat center in the UK. And they felt really, really strongly that service should be, it should be service, and it's not a job, and it shouldn't be paid, which I completely understand at one level. But then there's also a shadow side. There's this invisible transaction where you have people who are, free labor, basically, in essence, and how are their needs being met, and they can't travel, and they can't. So there's a shadow side to that. And so I feel really one of the things that's made me, was a source of inspiration there is we are able to sustain a lay community of really, of people who offer service and have a right livelihood, and we're able to financially, support them. And that's wonderful too.
Yeah.
Ask you, I appreciate what you're expressing there, and it's nice. I didn't know anything about your model, but of your expenses, $600,000 a year, that would be maybe well over half than is for personnel, like well over half.
I was wondering if you could share what's going on at Gampo Abbey. You said they're shutting it down. The monastery?
I don't want to talk about that here. That's not our business. And I don't have the full story. No, basically all I heard was that the Sakyong was moving the Sangha into Halifax. And that's all I heard. I don't know more than that.
I wrote you about this long ago, but I never really shared it with the community. Just the idea that if we ordain for our own study and practice, it kind of sets up a competitive culture, maybe between monastics and lay people too, right? Like, you're the people who sit in front, or this is about my own study and practice and my opportunity to be close to the teacher or whatever people imagine. So if that's the motivation, it just sets up a situation where lay people are not going to want to support monastics if you see them as fellow competitors for resources. I don't know. As opposed to, ordaining with a very different motivation, or being clear about serving as well in your ordination.
Yeah. And that is shown very much by how you act. Whether you act as, well, this is my education and, like this. Or if you act as, a monastic wanting to help everybody to get the education.
going back to an earlier part of this talk that you gave, Venerable, and you were talking about, whatever you choose to do, be happy doing it, layperson or monastic. And I think it's probably obvious, but it should be said over and over again. No big deal if you're an unhappy layperson. Big deal. So you're like the rest of the world, complaining. If you're a monastic and you're complaining, the damage is profound and drastic. It affects the whole world because, we're like a neon sign. And as you said, people are looking to the monastery for some inspiration and for some kind of guidance in this craziness. Yeah. And so if you're in that boat, my goodness, do yourself and everyone else a favor and, do what you need to do, but not at the monastery.
Yeah. And that's why it's also monasteries have problems like everybody else, but we don't talk about our problems with the lay people. And if you have difficulties with another monastic and you need to vent, you don't go to a lay practitioner and vent. Or if there's something going on in the monastery that you don't like, you don't go talk to the lay community about it. These things you need to talk to the monastery about it, because those are the people who have the power to change it. Venting and criticizing your monastery outside of the monastery, or if you live in a monastery and then you leave and you're nodding your head, you know all about this, and you talk negatively about the place you left to other people, it says more about your state of mind than it does about the place where you left. Yeah, it's very important not to, monasteries have problems, but we need to settle our own stuff. It doesn't help for the lay community to know about our stuff. Okay, if there's big, like we see these things, big embezzlement or the teachers sleeping with the students or whatever. Yes, in that kind of case, that, you have government laws, you need to adhere to the government laws. If somebody's, sexually harassing somebody or something illegal is going on, you need to report it to the government. But internal things, you try and solve it within the community without gossiping. Basically, it's gossiping about the community to other people, and then things get way blown out of proportion. And next thing, it's like, oh, we hear at your community that, people are having rave parties until midnight. And, and all the initial, people just, this happens. So, try and solve, because if there's a problem, the monastery is the one who needs to change it. Like I said, if there's legal things, or huge scandals, then yes, it needs to be brought up publicly. But other things are common gripes. We don't like this, we don't like that. Then when you leave, when you're outside, it's not so good to talk about that. Yeah. The lay people actually don't want to know. Okay, some lay people want to know all the gossip of the monastery, but it's really not helpful for them to know. Yeah. And having said that, okay, there's places I go and they tell me about what's going on in different monasteries, but I'm a nun, and they ask me for advice. You're a nun, you live in a monastery, this is what's happening here, what do you recommend? Yeah, but that's very different than talking to lay people. Do you want to say something about that? No? I think it's good.
We kind of keep it as a precept that all the things going on happens in the monastic. We just keep in the monastic community, and we don't say to lay people, because this is different world. People would not understand. Well, we are afraid to get the lay people lose your faith about community. It's a big harmful to the Buddha's Dharma and Sangha. So we are so careful about this.
Yeah. And also, A lot of the things we may gripe about is the discipline of the monastery that is common to every monastery. But if you gripe about it to the lay people, then the lay people think, what's wrong? These monastics, they won't let you have a cell phone. Yeah, they're depriving you of external contact with the rest of the world, and that's going to turn you into a cult. Yeah, because you don't have a cell phone, you can't contact other people, you can't see what's going on in the rest of the world. It's a cult. Lay people can easily think like that. Yeah. Whereas, in many monasteries, it's a common policy. You don't have cell phones. It's also part of our Vinaya. If somebody has broken a root precept or a secondary a Sanghavasesa, unless that person has, the Sangha has dealt with it, and in the case of Sanghavasesas, the person has been rehabilitated, we don't talk about it to the lay people. So we don't go around telling the lay people about other people's transgressions. Of course, if somebody disrobes, then the lay people need to know that. But that's different than gossiping about who's transgressed what precept or, that kind of stuff.